Hello everyone and welcome to an episode of Is It Possible? I'm calling this episode Volume 1 because I'm going to be just sharing a lot of information, background, nothing really specific, just sharing some thoughts and kind of letting you know where I'm coming from. For one, I do not come from a nice, healthy home. My home life was very insane, chaotic, very cold, distant, emotionless. And I'm being nice about it as well. So this gives you some idea of where I've come from. But there's a point in my life I had a Jesus experience. I'm just going to say it that way. And then I started to experience life, kind of out in the real world. I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's one of those kind of things to where sometimes we have to experience life kind of outside of the church bubble, as it were. And God sometimes uses different things in the world to show us, to teach us, to help us to grow. And so I'm going to be doing, this is going to be Volume 1. I'm going to be doing a few other volumes after this one. I'm going to be doing some specific stuff later on down the road, but I wanted to give some foundation, some ideas of where I'm coming from and why I'm coming from these different perspectives. So, and what's ironic about it is that I was watching some things on social media, and it's like you can only get so many things that says, "Hey, you need to do this." Now, some other thoughts here. My disclaimers: I do stutter a lot, especially when I'm talking. I talk really fast. The people at work, boy, yeah, I'm going 100 miles an hour with people at work. Sometimes they're like, "Okay, could you repeat that real slow?" And for them, my slow becomes more of a, what's the word for it? Still fast, but almost normal. So that gives you some idea that my brain is just working so fast. And to me, that's normal of how fast my brain works. But trying to get things out, I'm just like, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. Whoa, hello, can you maybe write that down or something like that? So anyway, some disclaimers there for you because I'm going to be rewinding sometimes, going forward sometimes, going, this way, that way, this way, that way. And then later on, again, I will be more specific on different subjects. However, as I'm sharing with you fine folks different pieces of information, what I'm sharing, you may be like, oh my gosh, right there. That's something that I didn't know that I really needed to know that information. That's good stuff right there. So you may get some little nuggets of gold along the way. So I share nuggets of gold because I love to read. And recently I read a book on the gold rush, the whole 49ers thing. That was really interesting reading because I'm just like, I was kind of comparing the 49ers with how we are in the church. Yeah, okay. Let that catch up. Okay. I was comparing the 49ers with kind of how we are in the church. We get so hung up on this item or this thing, and it's like we just lose our minds over this thing. And, when you have hundreds and thousands of people that travel all the way across the nation for this earthen piece of material, it's earth material, it's gold, it's material, it's a metal. We have thousands of people that come from miles. Farmers leaving their families to come for gold. Wow, okay. So, as I'm reading this, I'm just like, I'm doing one of these, really? But it goes to show some ideas of what the mentalities were like back then. I mean, people were just trying to make a living. You had some that were farmers, some that we get hung up over things. Okay, now, again, I don't come from a healthy background, so, there's, I had to go into recovery and had to deal with a lot of my own issues. I just jumped from 49ers to my own issues. I know. I told you I was going to be jumping around some, so probably a whole lot more than that. So, anyway, that's why I call these volumes, because there's nothing really specific. So anyway, when I said I don't come from a healthy background, background of dysfunction, my family is a broken family. And the thing about having a broken family is it seems like that we have so many of those in our culture today. Broken families, single-parent families. It seems to be not really meaning to be a going thing, but it seems to be kind of a going thing. And so that's the other reasons why I'm doing these videos, is because there's a lot of insight that I have that we might care to know. So I had gone into recovery, and for a couple of years I became very religious. Very, very, very religious. And believe me, folks, when a person's religious, they are a headache. Oh my gosh. And fairly recently, in some churches that I've visited, I've ran into the same types of religious people. I'm just like, wow, I was like that. Holy cow, oh my gosh, wow, okay. And, it's one of those kind of things I've learned to have mercy, because I was just like that. When you're having issues and all you know how to do is spout Bible verses. I get it, been there, done that. But I'm sharing that because I was in 2 years in-house recovery, learning how to be religious, and then I got into a different form of ministry, which I don't even like the term ministry at this point, because the term of ministry sounds almost really too religious. So I got involved in another form of ministry, and that particular one helped me to deal with my past. Because when I was religious, I learned how to basically shove all that stuff under the rug. Or, for those of us that believe, shove it all under the cross. We shove it all under the blood, under the cross, under the blood, under the rug. Basically, we're not dealing with anything. So, I learned how to deal with my past. And that took a long time, a lot of years for me to understand. And I began to understand this, that I came from a very severe background of dysfunction, because it took me a lot of years to understand just how severe this stuff really was, the damage that was done. And unfortunately, we have a lot of families today that are exceptionally damaged. They can be repaired, but the catch-22 is, what are we willing to do to go back in and to deal with the repairs? So let me create a foundation for you when it comes to that, and that's this. What if we were to think of ourselves as a garden plot? Now, we know that there's gardening, which is small stuff, vegetables, flowers, when people think of gardens, they think of just like small version of what farmers do in their like cornfields, wheat fields. Okay, so I'm thinking of a garden. Now, in gardens, we can plant wheat and we can plant corn in our gardens. There might be like a smaller, like a maybe a small acre or two of corn or wheat. Okay, but nevertheless, it's still we can regard it as a garden. Okay, so that being said, let's think of ourselves as a garden, and this is what I've learned. It's what I've learned about myself. Okay, we think of ourselves as a garden. Now, here's some things to consider. We all have something that's been planted in our garden already. See where I'm going with this? These are the places we don't like to go, folks. We don't want to go down these roads. But let me explain why. Okay, so we were a garden, and something was planted in our garden. See here, here it is, folks. We wasn't born with a full bumper crop in our garden already. We were born clean slates. Okay, we were born as infants. Come on now, we didn't have anything going on in there. I mean, we were alive, we were living, but we were still developing. It wasn't until we started to grow and we started to take in all the information around us. Even when we were infants, we were still absorbing information. The feelings and the vibes and the whole atmosphere of the place, the smells. I remember. And when I was right around, I think I was probably 2 years old, but I still remember the kind of environment that I was in. One of the things that stands out to me is the cigarette smoke smell. Okay, that was really just like, that's the one thing that locked in, is that smell. So I knew that I had grown up in a very smoky cigarette environment. People were smokers. And later on, as I started doing the homework, I started kind of backtracking of my past, of the different age groups, and I realized that yes, it was an accurate assessment, that even as like a 2-year-old, even back further, I remember that cigarette smoke smell. It's like even back that far. And so we're a garden, we're born clear, and we're growing in our environment. Okay, and so we're learning all this information. We're learning what the adults around us are teaching us. Guess what, folks? And this is where it's going to get really interesting, okay? Let's regard what's being taught to us. It's either going to be wheat or it's going to be weeds. Here's the catch, and this is where it's going to get really tricky, is that oftentimes we don't know which one was planted in our garden because we were kids. Okay? We were kids. We assumed that everything that our parents were doing was right and true. Gospel truth. Unless they told us that they're human and they do make mistakes. I mean, there are some families out there that actually do say that to the children, which is really cool. It gives the children some kind of basis for being able to distinguish between, the parents going mad and it being their fault. It's one of those kind of things where they're able to distinguish between those two. Okay, but in some families, like mine, okay, where it's all a one-way street, it's always your fault. You're the problem. Okay, it gets to be really crazy. Well, here's the thing, folks. As children, we don't know that, so we take everything very personally until we're told otherwise. Okay, so we're at the mercy of whoever is around us. And most of the time, we don't really know what's being planted in our garden. But here's the thing. Whatever's being planted in our garden, it's growing. It is growing. And sometimes what's planted in the garden is both a combination of wheat and weeds. Okay, there's some good things that's been planted in there, but unfortunately, there's a whole lot of bad things that's been planted in our garden too. And the thing is, folks, even though we are responsible for it now, back then we were not responsible for it. Okay? Whoever was around us, they're the ones who told us basically what to plant. We received from those around us what to plant in our garden plot. We put our faith in it. We believed it. We took it as gospel truth. And because of that, it grew. Some things grew really fast. Some things, it's why I feel like in so many ways, as we get older, sometimes people like in their 30s and their 40s, it's like they're going through stuff and they don't really understand what it is that they're going through. It's like they're trying to figure the stuff out that's within them. That's usually because whatever was planted way back there, it's kind of like whatever that seed was, it was planted, doesn't come up until years later. Okay, that's why it's so important for us to go back and find out what was planted there. Because here's the thing, folks, as we're growing older, there's a lot of things that are unspoken. There's a lot of things that are spoken. But either way, the things that are spoken, the things that are unspoken, we are still taking it a certain way. Most of it comes out like this. We interpret the things kind of in a very childish manner. But it's usually childish misconceptions, misperceptions, and misunderstandings about ourselves, life, and even God. Okay? We have no way of being able to correct that unless a healthy adult comes along and corrects it for us. Unfortunately, sometimes some people may even try to correct it even a little bit, but because our minds are still so caught up in that family system, it's hard for us to really believe that anything else but this can be the truth because it's been so deeply ingrained in us. And sometimes we need to have, we have to come to God and ask God, what is the truth? Because sometimes it's so deeply twisted that it's like we almost have to begin to untwist. And we have to come to God continuously. What's the truth? What's the truth? What's the truth? Because we can't tell. The weeds and the wheat, we've been so convinced that the weeds are the truth that the wheat, we're like, is it really good for me? Is it really okay? Is this really okay? Because we've been so used to the other. Now, I feel like that's very relevant in the Christian life. Whenever we hear that wonderful verse, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, for whosoever believes in Him shall not perish but have everlasting life. How many of us, as soon as John 3:16 hits that part of, for God so loved the world, the beeper goes off in our hearts and says, that can't possibly be for me. I'm going to end this now because I'm going to keep each video for 15 minutes, which is the other reason why I'm doing a few volumes, because I tend to be very long-winded. Good stuff, but still long-winded, so I'm going to break it up into several sections. But I'm going to try to keep it in about 15 minutes. But I'm going to end this one with this. I'm going to be ending my videos with kind of like a biblical expression, and it's this. Love each other as He has loved us. Learn to grieve with those who grieve. Learn to mourn with those who mourn. And learn to bear with each other's burdens. Thank you for watching and listening. And stay tuned for another episode of Is It Possible? I'll see you in the next one. Stay tuned.